Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about Kanye West. Everything I've found out about Kanye West in the recent days, weeks, has been against my will, but truly it has been flooding social media, whether you even follow anything related to Kanye West. Recently, we know that he's been in the news for comments that are anti-Semitic. Aside from comments about Jewish people, there have been comments that are so truly bizarre and nonsensical to me. Now, one thing I want to make clear, because this has come up in a lot of articles, a lot of interviews, a lot of commentary about Kanye generally, is mental illness. Now, in terms of mental illness, what is official that I know of, and from all my looking, the only official thing is bipolar disorder. While, of course, mental illnesses can affect how you act, they are not a justification for how you act. You can't oversimplify it like that. In the sense of, I can be a depressed, anxious person. That doesn't mean that I get to treat you a certain type of way. That doesn't mean I get to act a certain type of way, especially a way that harms others. So the two things can exist. Yes, you have bipolar, but it can also be like you are making comments against Jewish people, you're making anti-Semitic comments. Those two things can both exist without one explaining the other, namely the mental illness being an explanation for the comments that aren't exclusively about Jewish people, but we'll get more into that in a second. So to be clear, this is no stigma against bipolar disorder. I'm just mentioning it because you can't use mental illness to forgive certain types of behaviors automatically. So first and foremost, the main reason Kanye West even came up on my radar, he was all over my timeline, was because of comments against Jewish people. Frankly, the rhetoric was extremely stereotypical rhetoric in terms of Jewish people making such comments as like Jewish people run everything, that they're controlling everything, kind of what we see when we think of those ignorant kind of little cartoons that draw Jewish people with certain facial expressions, with certain aspects of their faces being altered to fit certain stereotypes. So to be clear, because so much has been going on, this video will not be including every single thing that has happened with Kanye West. I will link articles down below if you want a timeline of every single thing, because things have happened relatively quickly. Though Kanye West in the past has had various moments, scandals that we could bring into this, truly, I think the timeline of just the month of October is a lot, so I'm only really going to talk about the things that I think are more central. Quickly, right off the bat, because of his anti-Semitic comments, he's been dropped by brands like Balenciaga, by Adidas more importantly because his long-standing collaboration with the sneakers, the Yeezys, so those are things that have happened, but in the larger scheme of things, I do think these are relatively unimportant things, and I think brands making a statement is important, but the reason the statement is being made is more important, right? They're dropping him because they don't agree with comments he's made here and there. There are two main things I want to focus on this video. One of them, his rhetoric against Jewish people, the anti-Semitism, because that's really what got the ball rolling, it seems like. And secondly, what he said about George Floyd. So one of the central things relating to anti-Semitic behavior, West claims he's going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, an apparent misspelling of DEFCON, and says it was not anti-Semitic for him to say so because black people are actually Jew also. His account is promptly locked by the social media platform. So I'm gonna put in a clip of him being interviewed discussing what he's been saying about Jewish people just for the context so you hear more from his perspective. Personally, it didn't really enlighten me or change anything for me because what was said was said. It all seems like a way to justify as opposed to it being a real apology. If you go on first to continue justifying yourself and then you apologize though, it doesn't seem super genuine. It also might seem like something more for marketing because you're being dropped by brands and so on. So you can make your conclusions about that too when you watch the following clip.
The idea of Black Lives Matter came out. It made us come together as a people. Now afterwards, yes, there was some things where the money went. There were some things where it was used in order to push us to the Democratic vote. There were people behind it involved. That happened, but the general feeling. So when I said that, and I questioned the death of George Floyd, it hurt my people. It hurt the black people. So I want to apologize to hurting them because right now God has shown me by what Adidas is doing and by what the media is doing, I know how it feels to have a knee on my neck now. So I thank you, God, for humbling me and letting me know how it really felt. Because how could the richest black man ever be humbled other than to be made to not be a billionaire in front of everyone off of one comment that actually, if you look at the definition of DEF CON, it means to get extra defense, which obviously I must have needed.
Yeah.
I must have needed that extra defense.
Are you worried you ruined your legacy, Kanye?
How?
Yeah, well,
stop.
I'm not worried. I'm just not worried, period. God is alive. God runs the world. You know, God even runs Hollywood. God is alive. And he's using me right now. He chose me for such a time like this to basically for the media to put their knee on my neck, for Adidas to put their knee on my neck. All I ever wanted at Adidas, I left Nike because Nike wouldn't give me a percentage for my shoes when I had the Red October. And my girlfriend at the time was pregnant and I needed to get some money. Because if I was the kid that just had the red shoes, I could have never been a black man wearing a red hat. Like Nike would have shut me down immediately, right? But because Adidas was a German company, it gave me a little bit more room to be able to express myself and to actually have a political opinion.
So there are a series of other things that occurred. For example, there was footage of Kanye West's interview with Tucker Carlson that was edited out of the broadcast, including him saying the term quote-unquote Jew refers to the 12 lost tribes of Judah, who people knew as the black race really are. A belief the Anti-Defamation League says stems from the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. So this was one of the leaked footages, broadcasts that show, again, this type of anti-Semitic behavior and this kind of really just damaging rhetoric. So then there's another talk show called The Shop that says it wouldn't air the interview with Kanye West because he used the platform to reiterate more hate speech and extremely dangerous stereotypes. 3 days later, in a since deleted episode of Drink Champs, West claims that George Floyd died because of fentanyl and not because former officer Derek Chauvin knelt on his neck for 9 minutes. Floyd's family subsequently says it plans to sue West for the remarks. On October 17th, in an interview with Chris Cuomo, West talks about the quote-unquote Jewish underground media mafia and says his DEF CON 3 remarks referred to when black musicians signed to Jewish record labels and those Jewish record labels take ownership, a form of quote-unquote modern-day slavery. The Anti-Defamation League says his remarks use age-old anti-Semitic myths about Jewish greed and power and control of the entertainment industry. October 19th, on Piers Morgan Uncensored, after saying he did not regret his anti-Semitic remarks, West apologizes to, quote, the people that I hurt with the DEF CON, quote, comment, and to, quote, the families of the people that had nothing to do with the trauma that I've been through, quote. So these are all some relatively recent moments, and you can see that they were only days apart. Now, in this article that I got from Forbes, they do mention that Kanye stopped his medication, and Kim Kardashian back in the day had also commented that Kanye wasn't himself on this medication. You can read about that, but like I said, I don't really want to focus too much on the mental health aspect because I do think people have to have accountability, and I also think it's a little bit infantilizing to say basically, oh, you're taking medication, so anything you say just goes, we can't hold you responsible, because really, you're an adult, you're responsible for your actions, and you being treated like a child, I think, is more insulting than anything. I don't think anyone really wants that, even in a case like this. Do you really want all your actions to be so infantilized that nothing's your fault? Because that's gonna follow you, because even when you try to do something meaningful in a positive way, is that suddenly gonna be you because it's good and everyone likes it? I don't really like this lens that overly focuses on the mental health aspects to a point that it's a justification or it's a further stigmatizing of the mental health aspect. I think we can count it as part of everything because it is there, because the mental illness is something that's part of who Kanye is, the same way that my mental illness is part of who I am, but we can't use that. Does that make sense? So I truly can't find any avenue here where everything can be explained to say like, hey, none of this was anti-Semitic. This is actually just him, and then insert quote about mental illness and being bipolar, or insert some kind of justification. That being said, there's a lot going around on Twitter of people agreeing with this type of commentary. In terms of George Floyd, first of all, I really don't think it's ever a good idea to bring up somebody else's death, suffering experience like that, especially if it's a case of comparison of, oh, now I know what it feels like. It's not the same thing. This comparison makes no sense because you really have two things that are so polarly opposite that there's no comparison to be made. But on top of that, making that type of commentary about a death that was already so quote-unquote controversial because some people came up with conspiracies and so on and so forth, I really think was potentially a distraction tactic to be like, hey, let's focus on this for a second instead of all these things that I'm saying and doing that really are, at the end of the day, based on hateful, negative stereotypes that just promote a level of bigotry. And in fact, even on Twitter, I was seeing people seconding all of this behavior, which to some degree I expect because Twitter is one of the worst places on earth. But in another way, I also, I guess, was naive enough to think even if some people agree with some of what Kanye is saying, surely they can see where the issues are. But again, because of his type of rhetoric, there are people just coming out saying he's right about everything. He is right about everything he said about Jewish people. And that is truly frightening because not only do these people agree, which is the most frightening thing of it all, but they feel comfortable enough to say all this shit in public as if it's just okay. I'm truly at a loss. I thought about it and I thought about it more and I was like, am I missing something here? Anyways, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below, especially let me know what you think about the video, because I hadn't seen the video of Kanye circulating the interview one. And that kind of contextualized things a little bit more because you never know really what you're looking at with articles, what was cut out, what was taken out of context, and so on and so forth, even though that looks bad anyway. Let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.